During this time of pandemic and relative isolation, I've been reading far more newspaper and magazine articles than I usually do. And I encountered an interesting article in the Wall Street Journal. During the quarantine, reporters from the journal read hundreds of articles from education experts and others about how to enrich activities for kids during the quarantine time when kids were confined to their homes. I think in great part because they were making their parents crazy. And the reporters tried some of the activities that had been prescribed by educators and others. And they asked kids about the activities, which was brilliant. Some of them, it turns out, were good recommendations. And with some of them, the kids just went, "You got to be kidding me," and just dismissed them out of hand. So then the reporters asked dozens of kids, ages 5 to 16, from all over the world, what they've been doing during their time at home that they've most enjoyed, and then how they would spend their time if anything were possible. So first, let's talk about what kids had done that they really enjoyed, or in their words, loved. 5-year-old boy says, digging a hole. One day, my sister and I dug a big, huge hole. You can imagine at 5 what huge was, but dug a great big hole to him in our backyard, and we trapped Mommy in it. That was the best day ever. Now, this teaches you stuff about the mind of a child. They creatively came up with the idea of digging a hole in the backyard. Under normal circumstances, what parent would even allow a child to dig a hole in the backyard? It was his creation. He owned it. Then he invited his mother into the trap, which I'm sure she saw, but Mother brilliantly went along with the trap. And so he got the sensation of not unhealthy power, a sense of that he'd done something. He had trapped his mother in a hole that he had made. You can just feel his enthusiasm. How would you get a child started doing something like that? Now, on their own, they might do way better than you. There's no indication that this child had any help. He just came up with the idea of digging a hole. But very often children say things like, "Well, what can I do?" Or "I have nothing to do," or the worst, "I'm bored." So sometimes they need help getting their creative juices started. So you might say to them, think of something you've always wanted to do here, but you've never been able to do. That usually gets a child's mind going because there's an element of forbiddenness to it. You might say, think of something that we've done or that you've done that you want to do again. Or go to Pinterest, one of my new favorite websites, and type in fun or creative activities for it's very specific, 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7, 8, 9 through 16, and there are thousands. Have the child do that. They know how to use the internet probably better than you do. And as they zip through all this list of activities, something is going to pique their interest. Building a 747 in the backyard may not be feasible, but they're going to find something. You also might say, so look in the house, look around the yard, think of the tools and shovels and scissors and cloth and glue and everything that we have. Now, with all that, what could you make? What could you do? Notice there's no electronic device involved here. And it really gets them going. There's something more real and theirs about creating things that don't involve an electronic device, because they're aware that the device has created the game. And yes, they can do some creative things within it, but they didn't really make it from scratch. Digging a hole, if you're a 5-year-old, my hole. It's very cool. This is a 6-year-old girl who says, playing teacher. Line up the dolls and the stuffed animals, and then teach them important stuff. That's what she actually did. Again, it's hers. She's in charge. Notice this recurring theme of being in charge, being the adult, the big person, a desire, in this girl's case, to influence things for good. She's teaching her dolls. That's a remarkable demonstration of a natural gift that she has. A 6-year-old girl. I've been making a pouch out of cloth, sewing it and making lots of stitches. For kids, more is better. Well, for most of us adults, more is better too. And my mom and I cut shapes out, stars and moons and trees and houses. And I like it that it looks like a sky at nighttime. Ooh, now see, that's poetry from a child as she's just sewing stuff onto a cloth. She continues, when it's done, we'll put a handle on it so I can put it on my shoulder. It's an expression of her, unlike anybody else's purse or bag. Not like something you get in a store. It's hers. It's creative and makes her feel like she's expressing herself. 6-year-old, I baked bread with my dad. It was French bread that comes from France. Hard to imagine, huh, that the ingredients did. But to him, that just brought France right into his living room. They were like, the long, skinny ones. So he got fun out of doing something a little exotic, from another country. It's special. And notice, with Dad, he enjoyed doing something with his father that was fun. 7-year-old, I biked to my friend's house so that I could give them these chocolate treats that I made that were called spilled milk, that you can make with melted white chocolate and cereal, so it looks like spilled milk. I left them at the end of the driveway for my friends. So here he is, keeping the guidelines of social distancing, but he's giving, he's working. This takes work to make these things. Caring, creative, all of those things from just something that just popped into his head. 7-year-old boy, we planted tomatoes and basil and sunflower seeds. So a family activity, he said, something that we could do together, involved building and creative and a kind of delayed gratification. 7-year-olds don't usually come up with something that's going to sprout days to weeks later. Brilliant activity. 8-year-old girl, do our own Easter egg hunt. Even though it wasn't Easter at the time, do our own Easter egg hunt with my brother and sister and parents, and we can hide things inside the Easter eggs, like little treasures. Can you hear the tone of voice, like giggling? Delight, mystery, family, fun, work, all together in one activity. A 9-year-old, we pretended our house was a hotel. I would never have thought of this. And we all switched around, everybody in the family, and slept in different rooms, and even made a check-in desk where you had to pick up your key. This child had clearly been to a hotel before and thought that was cool. And the child says, it was pretty cool. 9 years old. We've done a bunch of baking, and we've tried some sourdough waffles, and they were really good. So she got to create something. It tasted good. Feeding the sourdough starter is like the closest thing to a pet that we have right now. How interesting that a 9-year-old sees the yeast as a living thing, which of course it is, but it doesn't look living sitting in a little packet. A 10-year-old. My little brother and I have been making lots of forts, and that's been cool. One day we built a fort mansion by combining 2 forts, and it was huge and had lots of rooms. And then we ate lunch in it. You hear the infection in these kids? An 11-year-old boy. I really enjoy Greek and Roman myths, so I made a podcast about them. And then he named some apps for how you make a podcast. What a great way to use technology not just to distract yourself like a video game, but to express yourself and to learn some things. I'm sure he did some research before he went and did podcasts about his Greek and Roman myths. Very creative. 12 years old, finding a hobby. I've been learning to play the ukulele. Easy. How many instruction videos do you think there are on YouTube that teach you how to play a ukulele? And this child says, I've really enjoyed this. Now, these are things kids actually did. Following are some things that kids said they would do if they could do anything right now. One child said, I would have my stuffies, I assume that means stuffed animals, come to life, and then I could play board games with them or play catch with them with my baseball. And without meaning to, if the parent is paying attention to this, the parent could say, well, then go do that. Or say, after you're done playing baseball and these board games with your stuffies, the kid unwittingly, almost certainly, named some things that he would like his parents to do with them. So you as parents could then volunteer to, would it be okay if I took the place of one of your stuffies and played a game with you? What child would say no? 7-year-old girl, turn my whole house into a giant obstacle course where I could swing from chandeliers and jump on furniture, and the floor is hot, molten lava. That just sounds so fantastic. You can make that happen. If you have a yard, go outside and string some ropes so that they can swing across, say, a mud pit, and you call it molten lava. If you live in an apartment or a house, go into the garage and where there are running 2x4s above you, screw or bolt a rope up there and let them swing across the place that you designate as the boiling lava. And you get to do this with them. And if you fall into the boiling lava, you get to scream as you die. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that kids just love. You can make this stuff even with just PVC parts in your apartment that you can take apart and store really easily. Go to Pinterest and find ways to create this obstacle course. Look up obstacle course on Pinterest. An 8-year-old girl says, catch a dragon or catch a Pokemon, and then I would train them to fight. Clever, you might volunteer to be the dragon or the Pokemon and have a rope around your neck and be led around and be taught to whatever. Kids love to be in charge. You hear the theme over and over again. They like to be in charge of a thing because most kids spend all day being told what to do. 9-year-old, swim in a chocolate river. Thinking, how am I going to make a chocolate river in the living room? You probably won't. But you can melt chocolate, get it to room temperature, and take little plastic figures that represent them, little people. They're endless numbers of little plastic figurines, or your fingers, and swim through a chocolate river. It's the spontaneity of just doing whatever they say. I was outside one day in January and it was really cold and the edges of the lake were ice was forming. And I asked my 9-year-old granddaughter, what would you like to do right now? Just like the question from the journal reporters. And she said, jump in the lake. I said, let's go, clothes and all. We went straight from where we were out to the lake and jumped in the lake. She'll remember that for the rest of her life. A 10-year-old says, turn my bedroom into a garden and a library. I would have real plants in there and a ladder with wheels. Make the ladder. It takes remarkably few pieces of PVC and some joints, and you don't even have to glue them. You can take it all apart and store it in a little box. Give it away. You can find the plans for making a ladder and for making a garden or a library or a desk or whatever, again, on websites all over the place. This is a child who says, turn my backyard into a giant mini golf course. Well, Why can't you do that in your yard? Why can't you do it in your house? It doesn't have to be a giant mini golf course. It might be one hole. If you don't have a set of golf clubs, find a ball of any kind and flick it with your fingers. If we listen to them, they tell us what they would really like to do. And we tend to respond with, well, I don't have a golf ball. That wasn't the point. I don't play golf, not the point again. Make it happen. Here's a child who says, redo our basement into an office area so I could be uninterrupted while I work. Who do you think she's mimicking here, huh? I'd put on a chair and a table and paint it with a fun color. How hard could this be? To go down and use an old table, make a table, put a sign on it that says, Susie's private office. How tough would that be? And this child would just feel like very cool. Or you put a sign up at the top of the stairs of the basement that says, if you need to talk to me, kids love being in charge. And you put a little bell there. Ring this bell and I'll come and get you. It puts them in charge. They want uninterrupted time. Or rig a string with 2 pulleys from the top of the stairs to the desk, and you can send notes down to your child. They love to create their own worlds, and all we have to do really is listen to them. Here's a child that says, build a whole course with wood scraps and a balance beam and lots of dirt jumps in the backyard and practice my mountain bike skills anytime I want. Well, then make a jump in the backyard. And if you don't have a yard, find somebody you know who does have an empty lot, woods, something, and get their permission and go create a jump. And you can still create your social distancing. They don't have to be there. But make it happen. Last, and there were many, but this is the last of the ones that I gleaned. Become fluent in sign language or Japanese. Or ancient Mayan or whatever. So the child during the time of relative isolation isn't going to learn Japanese, not likely, but they can learn some very simple phrases. When is dinner? Thank you. I love you. And you can learn some simple phrases, enough to conduct just the shortest conversation. If their interest is greater, you can learn more phrases and let them teach you. In fact, you could use them when you're away from the house as kind of a code. Kids love to have a language of their own. Really, the bottom line is listen to them. Ask them questions, but then listen. Don't tell them how it can't be done. If they propose something, come up with whatever is possible. If not an entire 18-hole mini golf course in your backyard, maybe 1 hole in their bedroom. And something that they would like, instead of going, we can't do that, which we tend to do as adults because we go, oh, it's going to be some work. Work to foster the creativity of a child? Come on. And you can't ask what they want to do and then say, but. When I asked my granddaughter what she wanted to do and she said, jump in the lake, I didn't say, but it's January. No, I took her by the hand and went, let's go. We went straight to the edge of the lake and in we went. What a memorable experience. Oh, and none of these kids needed a phone or a video game to have fun. And they were all the more creative and empowered for it. We can learn to listen to our kids and have fun.